You just checked your phone. You don't remember deciding to. Your hand reached into your pocket, pulled it out, lit up the screen, and your eyes scanned it before any conscious thought arrived. There was no notification. Nothing was waiting. You checked anyway. And here is the strange part. You will do it again in the next few minutes, and you won't remember that decision either. Most people believe this is a modern problem, a failure of willpower, a bad habit built by app designers who want your attention. And some of that is true. But the real answer is far stranger because the reason you can't stop checking your phone was written into your brain long before phones existed, long before cities, long before farming, in a world where checking constantly was the difference between living and dying. To understand this, you have to go back. Not a few years, not a few centuries, hundreds of thousands of years to the environment your brain was actually built for. Your ancestors lived on open grasslands and forest edges. They were not the fastest animals. They were not the strongest. They had no claws, no armor, no venom. What they had was attention, the ability to notice, a rustle in the grass, a shadow moving wrong, a shape at the edge of the tree line that hadn't been there a moment ago. In that world, a brain that scanned the environment constantly survived. A brain that relaxed and stopped scanning got eaten. So think about what that means over thousands of generations. Every ancestor you have, every single one, was descended from the ones who kept checking. The calm ones, the ones who could ignore a strange sound, often didn't live long enough to pass anything on. You are the product of the most vigilant humans who ever lived. Now here's the question that matters. What happens when you take a brain built to scan an open savanna for threats, and you put it in a quiet apartment with nothing to hunt and nothing hunting it? The scanning doesn't stop. It has nowhere to go. And then someone hands you a glowing rectangle that produces a new thing to notice every few seconds. The psychologist who helps explain what happens next is B.F. Skinner. In the 1930s, Skinner, working at Harvard, built a simple box. Inside it, an animal, often a pigeon or a rat, could press a lever. Sometimes pressing the lever produced food. Sometimes it produced nothing. Skinner discovered something that should make you deeply uncomfortable. When the reward came every single time, the animal pressed the lever calmly, only when hungry. But when the reward came randomly, unpredictably, sometimes yes and sometimes no, the animal pressed the lever compulsively, over and over, far more than it needed to. The uncertainty itself was the drug. This is called a variable reward schedule. And it is the single most powerful way to drive a behavior known to psychology. Not reward. Uncertain reward. Your brain releases the chemical dopamine not when you get something good, but in anticipation of maybe getting something good. The maybe is the engine. A slot machine works on exactly this principle. So does your phone. Think about what happens when you check it. Most of the time, nothing. A boring screen. But sometimes a message from someone you like. Sometimes a photo that makes you laugh. Sometimes news, a like, a reply, a small hit of connection or novelty. You never know which time it will be. So your brain, the ancient scanning brain that was built to check the grass for movement, does the only thing it knows how to do. It checks. And checks. And checks. The researcher Robert Sapolsky, a neuroscientist at Stanford, has described how dopamine works in a way that reframes everything. For a long time, people assumed dopamine was the pleasure chemical, the reward you feel when something good happens. But Sapolsky points to experiments showing that dopamine spikes hardest, not during the reward, but during the wait. The anticipation, the reaching. In one framing of the research, when a signal reliably predicts a reward, the dopamine moves earlier and earlier, away from the reward itself and toward the cue. The wanting, it turns out, is a separate system from the liking. You can want something intensely and barely enjoy it when you get it. Sound familiar? You feel the pull to check. You check. You feel almost nothing. And a few minutes later, you feel the pull again. That gap between wanting and liking is where your attention leaks out of your life. Because the wanting never fully satisfies, it can't. It was never designed to be satisfied. On the savannah, the point of scanning wasn't to feel good. The point was to survive, and survival is never finished. You never scan the horizon once and think, right, that's handled. I can stop now. The vigilance is meant to run forever. Your phone has simply hijacked a system that was built to never turn off. But there's a second ancient system at work, and this one is even older. Your brain is not just a threat detector, it is a novelty detector. New information in the world your ancestors lived in was almost always valuable. Where the water moved to, which plants were fruiting, where the herd had gone, who in the group was allied with whom. Information was survival and social information most of all. Humans are an intensely social species. For most of history, being cut off from your group meant death. So your brain treats news about other people, gossip, status, who did what, as urgent, high-priority data, as something you cannot afford to miss. Now consider what a social media feed actually is. It is an infinite stream of social information about other people, delivered in unpredictable bursts. It is, from your ancient brain's point of view, the single richest source of survival-relevant data it has ever encountered. Of course, you can't look away. A part of you, a very old part, genuinely believes that missing this information could get you killed. The anthropologist Robin Dunbar spent years studying the size of human social groups. He found that the human brain seems built to track a stable network of somewhere around 150 meaningful relationships, a figure now often called Dunbar's number. That was the rough size of the communities your ancestors lived in. That was how many people you needed to keep track of. Now think about how many people your feed asks you to keep track of. Thousands. Strangers. People you'll never meet, whose lives are performed for an audience. Your brain, built to monitor a village of 150, is trying to process a city of millions, and it cannot tell the difference between the two. Every stranger's update lands with the weight of a neighbor's. The system is overwhelmed, and it responds by demanding you check more, not less. So, put it together. You have a brain built to scan constantly for threats that cannot turn its scanning off. A brain built to crave the anticipation of uncertain rewards, wired to a device engineered to deliver exactly that. And a brain built to hungrily track the lives of a small group, now drowning in the lives of a limitless one. Three ancient survival systems, each one adaptive, each one brilliant, all three pointed at a glowing screen that gives them precisely what they evolved to seek and never lets them feel finished. This is why willpower alone fails. When you tell yourself to just stop checking, you are a single conscious voice trying to override three of the oldest, deepest, most successful survival programs your species ever built. You are not weak. You are outmatched. You are running ancient software in an environment it was never designed for. And the environment was specifically built by people who understood that software better than you do. Does that mean you're helpless? No. And this is where understanding the machine gives you back some control, because the systems that drive you are automatic, but the environment that triggers them is not. Your ancient brain scans for whatever is available. If the phone is in your pocket, it scans the phone. If it is in another room, the scanning has to find something else, and it will. The pull doesn't come from inside you as much as it comes from the cue. Remove the cue and the compulsion quiets, not because you defeated it, but because you stopped feeding it. The people who seem to have a healthy relationship with their phones are rarely the ones with more willpower. They are usually the ones who have made checking harder. They turned off the unpredictable rewards, the badges and buzzes. They put the machine out of sight. They stopped fighting the ancient brain and simply stopped handing it the trigger. There's something almost freeing in seeing it this way. The itch to check is not a character flaw. It is not laziness or addiction in the way we usually mean those words. It is 100,000 years of survival instinct, doing exactly what it was built to do in a world that no longer matches it. The same vigilance that once kept your ancestors alive on the open grass is now being spent scanning a screen for a notification that isn't there. So the next time your hand reaches for your phone before you've even decided to, Pause for just a second and notice what's happening. That reach is not really about the phone. It's a very old animal, deep inside a very modern life, doing the only thing it has ever known how to do, scanning the grass, watching for movement, making sure, one more time, that nothing is out there. You just checked your phone. And now, maybe for the first time, you know exactly who was doing the checking.